Hey, so I know that I didn't promise. I said that I was going to do this live, and I didn't say when, so I'm just pop up. Here's a pop up live. And I want to go into what made me want to make this live before we enter into the discussion. So I'm over at Zayek's Institute, and please donate to the Zayek's Institute. It's an educational institute for Black youth, Black homeschool youth specifically. All the classes are facilitated through the Institute. And if you look in the description box of this video, you will find donation links and links for you to register your children if you're interested. But the reason that I really wanted to have this conversation is because one of our ELA teachers for the upper level classes is having the children read The House Behind the Cypress or The House Behind the Willow. No, The House Behind the Cypress, I think. It's House Behind the Cypress or House Behind the Willow. I can't remember it right now. But this is a book that was written by a mulatto man about octoroon people who were trying to pass for white, although arguably once you're octoroon, you're really a white person with a splash of black. But at that time, legally, these people were considered black. And I really struggled with people reading, my daughter, right, reading this novel because it elevates whiteness and it makes a lot of statements about whiteness that disgust me when written by somebody who was considered at the time to be a Black author, although, like I said, he's a mulatto. So this got me thinking about when they were talking about how they had better breeding, right, than the people around them who were fully Black. How the mother was disappointed that her daughter's hair was not perfectly straight, that there was a slight bend to her hair. How when the son came to take his sister away so that she could go pass for white with him, something he told the mother was that she could never come around because she did not look white enough, and it would degrade them. And so just this ideology that white was better. And as my parental struggles aside of wanting, deciding whether or not I want my daughter to read this book because it takes such a critical eye to read it and not be influenced by the rhetoric that's in there, even though, in fairness, my eldest son made the point that she's not exposed to those ideas in our home. But I guess because I did grow up exposed to those ideas, and many of us have heard these ideas about what good hair is, the push that being fully Black is not a good thing to society, I still struggled with having her read it, especially with her being mixed race, right? I definitely did not want her reading a book where there was elevation of not being fully Black. That was disgusting to me. But it got me thinking about there was definitely a time in history where being white was better, right? And when I said to Mr. like, I want to talk about white being better, he was like, well, we have to put it in context when we say white is better. And so, Mr., do you remember what you were saying about like the context that we had to put it in?
Yeah, because when people probably are listening to us right now and they may hear you saying, white or whiteness is better, and I forgot how I articulated it, but it's as though like we're saying that blacks are inferior, right? So they're less than. Um, and that's not what we're saying. What we're trying to say is their situation is often better, right? So I was just thinking about Cheryl Harris, a critical race theorist. She did the tenet whiteness as property, right? And so that was a legal article that she wrote. But she goes into how these discriminatory practices and everything are put into place so that whiteness can then be property, i.e., whiteness is better. And so, and again, I'm pretty sure Irene can articulate a little bit more. But so when we're saying that, whiteness allows you these privileges. And I hate to talk about privileges, right? Because no one's really going to give away their privilege to try to have like this egalitarian society, right? No one's really going to do that. I mean, I talk to white folks all the time, and I'm like, you know, truth be told, are you going to give up your privilege? No. So that's just a wasted conversation. But in this context, when we're talking about, you know, whiteness, there's usually when we look at their material situation, it's often a lot better. I'm thinking about this. This is a song. Let me get the author's name. It's the his name is Big Billy Bronzy. I maybe mispronouncing his last name, or Brunzi. And it's a song called Black, Brown, and White. And this the first time I heard it was when I saw the documentary "I'm Not Your Negro" narrated by Samuel Jackson, and it said, the chorus goes, "If you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. But if you're black, oh brother, get back, get back, get back." So I think about that song, the lyrics of the song, and I think about this conversation that we're having, and whiteness is being better. And again, I don't want people to get confused and think that we're saying that white folks are better. But I think what we're trying to convey, and hopefully we're not doing a horrible job in doing so, is that their situation is better, right? And so when we look at that, and especially young black people, and even old black people, because I even think that you know black people think that white folks ice is often cooler, right? And so using that analogy and that saying, their ice is often a little cooler because they've been awarded these privileges, right?
Yeah,
And
they can
so,
afford better refrigerators.
absolutely, you know, so all these things, and you know, when anybody, a young person or an older person, they're trying to, whether it's attain material status and everything, often they want to emulate that white person because their situation is often better. So when we say whiteness is better, um, put it in the framework of their, like, the materiality, the things that they have, the things that they possess, the privileges that they have. We're not trying to say, even though we utilize the term, white superiority or alleged white superiority, right?
Well, not
But
me. Y'all know I hate that term.
yeah, but I know it's often utilized, and that's why I say alleged, right? But that's not what we're trying to convey here. You know, so this
So can
past
we talk about? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say this past week, you know, the institution the institution where I work, we had a great scholar who's a known environmentalist scholar, and really addressing environmental racism. And when he deconstructs and breaks down, and you see where white folks are well-meaning people, mainly white folks, are living, and how they're not impacted by the toxins, right, and all the remnants of you know this environmental injustice. It doesn't impact them, right? But when you look at black people in particular and brown folks, it impacts us. So yes, when we look at their situation, white folks, whiteness, or white people, their situation is often better. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think what the issue is that Yvette Carnell often says we're going to access whiteness, right? We're going to access their privilege, is what she says, right? That's the goal, is to access their privilege. But I think the problem is, historically speaking, when we look at the history of places that have been colonized, because all of the people with the most power, not to say that there are not poor white people, right? But because the people who have actual power are overly represented as white, there was a benefit to looking more white. There were Black people that, if they could, or octoroons, etc., where if they could pass for white, they would choose to pass for white because it would give them access to things, right? We mimic oftentimes what white culture looks like. So we'll put, if our eyes are not naturally green, or are blue, or hazel, if that's not our natural state, then we'll often wear those eyes, because when we associate prosperity, we often want to look like the people who are prosperous. And this doesn't extend to just wanting to dress like them or wear the same brands that they wear. This also extends to wanting their eye color, wanting to wear our hair like theirs. Hence the reason why uh, Caucasoid hair is considered more popular. And I'm not knocking anybody who wears weave. I'm just saying, please let's not pretend that uh, the straight hair textures that we see in some parts of Africa, or even my hair texture, is the average hair texture for Black people. We know that we're emulating people who are successful. So if they wear their hair a certain way, and because their hair does not reflect our hair, because we are not represented in those echelons, then that is what happens. And to an extent, we see this with Black wealth as well. So because most Black wealthy people are rappers and entertainers, right? Most wealthy Black people are not doctors, lawyers, politicians, and state leaders. Most of them are entertainers. That's what a rapper is. That's what a basketball player is, or a football player. These are entertainers. And so these entertainers are not representative of the normal person, not because of their wealth, but because they're doing a shuck and jive for money for a living. And so the women that they pick are often very funny looking women who have had lots of surgery and things. But because we're emulating their success, we then want to dress like them. So if they're tattooing their whole body, tattooing their face up, um, wearing their clothes all kinds of crazy ways, then we emulate that because we're emulating success. The problem is that the majority of success reflects as white, and the Black success reflects as entertainers. So we're either aspiring to be the white version of success, or this kind of caricature, because entertainers are caricatures, are they not? They're caricatures of regular people. So we either have Black people trying to be a caricature, a cartoon character, a living, breathing cartoon character, because they are emulating entertainers. I saw a young woman here on YouTube that said she wanted her lips to look like a Bratz doll, right? She was getting, to a Black woman, getting lip injections. So she had got her butt done, and she was getting lip injections, and she's like, I want my lips to look like a Bratz doll, right? Because she's being a caricature of Black wealth, and the Black wealth are caricatures of people, because most Black wealth are entertainers. Just like when we emulate white wealth, and when we try to access what we view as better, we start buying the clothes that white wealth buys, right? So
Well,
what is
yeah,
white wealth wearing? If they're wearing Louis Vuitton, we want to wear Louis Vuitton. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I just wanted to jump in here. So I think it's important that we kind of like nuance it and parse it out. So first, I think that there are also, some Black well-to-do folks who are not entertainers or rappers, right? And they're still emulating whiteness, right? Because they just think that's the right way to go about doing things. So therefore, if I'm going to be successful and I need to mimic, this whiteness in order to maintain some type of success, even in the fact of having, our partners, our wives and everything, they have to be of a certain type of stratus, right? A certain type of class. They have to, they can't speak in a vernacular. And I think you should be able to speak, you should, speak, um, I don't want to say appropriately, but I think you should know how to conduct yourself at the given time. And you should be able to speak down home to our people. You should know how to speak, whether
Proper
it's a
English.
setting, whatever the case may be. And I don't say proper English because I say, listen, if I'm talking to somebody and it may be in a vernacular and they understand it, well, that's proper English for them. If I'm speaking to somebody else,
Mm.
if I'm speaking to somebody else and they understand a more formal register, then that's proper English to them. Because I
Well,
don't get
wait,
into that.
I think that's unfair though, because our people learned English as a native language. And so there were common mispronunciations because of the fact that it was their second language. That is no different from anybody else from who throughout the world who learns English. They mispronounce words because it's not their first language. But
Well,
Most
yeah. I mean,
people, like if I, for example, if I'm learning to speak Spanish, I can say como esta, but that's not Spanish. It's como está, right? Most people, when they learn a language, learn to speak it appropriately. I don't think anything is wrong with dialects, but I do think we would strive if we were learning any other language to speak it appropriately. English is a second language for our ancestors. And because our early ancestors were not educated, they never learned to speak the language appropriately because they learned it through immersion, right? They did not learn it in a class the way we might learn Spanish or French or German or Arabic. So I don't think I don't have a problem with saying, we speak proper American English. We should strive for that and then also keep our native dialect that our ancestors spoke because English was a second language to them. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, but here's the thing, and I don't want to turn this into a linguistical kind of like debate. But the thing about it is, we have classics, especially during the Harlem Renaissance, where we have our vernacular published in its rawest form, right? And it's well received. Now, and again, it could be interesting versions, right? Because people were making a lot of money off of that. I don't know what happened to you, but I guess it's just me on here. Hopefully, you'll come back. But those type of things happen, and so again, I don't want to get into, like I said, bemoan that argument because again, we have several classic where we hear like, oh my goodness, I can't even read that now. You know what I mean? What are they saying? But it will still, it's still, within the canon as a classic within, the Harlem Renaissance of literature, poetry, so on and so forth. But the other point I wanted to make about the, professionals that are not rappers or entertainers, like I was saying previously, they often do try to mimic whiteness too, not just with their talk and vernacular, everything, but like you said, they try to dress or act, or like my brother Dr. Tommy Curry says, is this epistemic convergence. And so when they do associate, black intellect or something to that extent, they always mention it in a category of somebody white to make sure it gets its just due, right? So you'll call somebody like Du Bois, like, relegate him to like, John Dewey, or, somebody like Fanon, you'll relegate them to like Foucault. You'll say like Fanon is the black Foucault. No, Fanon is not the black Foucault. Fanon is the black Fanon. But these are the things that we do oftentimes to, just to kind of mimic this whiteness to say, oh, well, whiteness really is, the best way. So we got to make sure we mention our black scholars in that same framework as these white scholars to make sure we give them, their just due. And so these things happen, but I want to stress this point, and I know we may have some, divergence in ideology on this. Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a nice, appearance, a nice attire, whether it's dressing professionally or casually or whatever the case it is,
So
dapper.
I think I take issue with the idea of dressing professionally because our idea of what is professional, right, is based on the Euro standard. Now, why is it? And I don't like dashikis, you guys. But
But you
why
didn't let me
why
finish.
is it?
But go ahead.
But
well, what,
my question is why can't a dashiki be professional, right? I might not personally want to wear it, but there's no reason that cannot be considered the norm. So we're really emulating the European norm because what they used to wear, what their aristocrats used to wear, that style of dress has been morphed in colonized countries. So I think, you know, nuancing what we think is a certain type of dress, I think is really needed. I think sloppy is sloppy no matter the style of clothing, right? But, there are countries that are not colonized. Some countries in the Middle East where a professional attire is wearing traditional Muslim garb, all white, right? or all black traditional Muslim garb and having your head wrapped, and people conduct meetings in that clothing, right? And that is considered professional attire. So we do also have a very Eurocentric idea of what that is. And then I also want to speak to James Bond Maxwell, because there is a debate going in the chat that actually ties into what we're talking about. And he was saying, because we have a mixed audience here, explain to him, because he is white, what is my white privilege as a poor white person? And I think Mr. actually touched on this earlier. Mr. recently had a symposium, if I can call it a symposium, for Martin Luther King. King's upcoming holiday. And he had a gentleman come speak who is a well-known environmental scientist and helped to pass um, some environmental laws to ensure that there wasn't environmental discrimination in Black communities in this country, right? So this is a man who's been in the Oval Office because he spearheaded research that allowed laws to be passed for environmental justice. So I think we can say he is an authority. And something that really spoke to me is he said that a middle-class Black family that is earning about $70,000, I think is what he quoted, a year, that a lot of people think that when we think of environmental pollution, that it is a poverty thing, that in poor neighborhoods, they pollute those neighborhoods because the people are poor. And because Black people are disproportionately represented in poor neighborhoods, that it is simply coincidental that they are often suffering from environmental pollution. But what his research, his extensive research that helped pass laws in this country found was that it was actually race. That a white family, let's say if you have a white neighborhood, a predominantly white neighborhood where the families have an average income of $10,000 a year, meaning these are people who are in poverty at $10,000 a year, but in predominantly white areas, that they were less likely, right, to experience environmental pollution than neighborhoods that were predominantly Black and middle class. So that their research, when it was flushed out, that it was not actually based on poverty, that there was, in fact, targeting of Black communities to introduce pollutive things within that environment. So that is an example of white privilege. Now, do the poor white people have control over whether or not somebody chooses not to pollute their neighborhoods? Absolutely not, right? Poor
No.
white people don't own the corporations that choose to dump their pollution in one place or another. But that doesn't negate the fact that the disparity is race based, right? So I think a lot of times white people who don't feel privileged because they don't have money, where they miss it is that simply because you are not in control, like they're not in control of where the corporations put the pollution, does not mean that the fact that the neighborhood is mostly white does not provide a safety privilege, even over a middle class Black family. And then, Mr., can you speak on also, there's an example with uh, the disparity between Black families that earn like around 100,000 per year and white families that earn 100,000 per year, and like how their
Yeah,
children fare. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. I was just going to go
Can you
there.
speak to
So
that? Thank you.
yeah, so it's a study by Raj Chetty out of Stanford. I believe it's in the economics division, and so it was really speaking to the downward mobility of Black males, and like this is a real phenomenon. So what Irene was alluded to is the fact that you could have a Black male that comes from a two-parent family, and each family, I believe, so each each member, so the father and the mother could be making like 140 each, right? So they're making almost $300,000, and that Black male has the same amount, or actually, it's his downward mobility is will be greater than a white male from a single parent that makes $60,000. I mean, so when you look at those things, like you're like, well, wow, what are you? And so those numbers don't lie. And it's like, wait a minute. And then what we tend to do in society is like, okay, well, we just pathologize, we pathologize the black male, say, okay, well, they made a lot of bad decisions. They did this, they did that, and everything. And that's not always the case. That could be the case for some, but I mean, this study was pretty extensive and comprehensive. And so when you look at that, again, that's another example. And then even if you were to talk to some, because the institution where I work is, heavily white. A lot of white folks who are really, you know, on the poverty stricken or, lower, or on the, just about being poor, working class poor, they still would consider themselves being better than a black person. I mean, if they're being honest, because they know the privilege that they do have, even with their economic situation. They know that, when they go out or when their children go out, that they're more than likely not going to have the same situation that will occur as a black male or as a black person will, just in society. We're not even talking about meeting a rogue police officer. And so these are the type of privileges that we talk about. But again, like I said earlier, I don't even like to go into the privilege game because it's not, it's a conversation that's full of empty rhetoric because it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, no one, I don't think, I could be wrong, but again, white people have been in control for many, many years, and nobody's just going to give up their power just because you write a book or just because, some sentiments might say, oh, yes, you're right, I have this privilege. I need to do something about it. I need to be more in line with allies and form, some type of kumbaya membership, and then we could all get along. But you still have the power status, you
Or
know.
more like we can all get together and overthrow the white elite, right? So because because here's the thing, those conversations are going to be had with the lower classes of white people. So then the question becomes, do we overthrow the white elite to eliminate that privilege,
But see,
right? And then how many people are going to line up for that?
but this is how hegemony works, So when we talk about hegemony, so this comes from Gramsci, an Italian Marxist, and it comes from his the prison notebooks that he wrote. And so, really, when we talk about hegemony, we're talking about a
Wait, I was
power
going to
figure.
say, please don't use epithets for people. Go ahead.
I use any evidence. That's a
No, I
thing.
wasn't saying that to you. I'm talking to the chat. I was just
Oh,
saying, don't use epithets for people, please.
okay. Yeah, please don't use anything. I don't want to come for nobody. But anyway, what I'm saying is that it means power, right? And it means, like propaganda. It's the way it's how the elite kind of rule things, but they don't rule it with an iron fist, so they don't have to bang you over the head. It's not that type of power where it's, like authoritative. But guess what? It's fluid. So what you just alluded to, Irene, is that the people in power constantly move the goalposts. So let me give you a perfect example of what I mean by this. So over the summer, of course, we're still in COVID. Um, with Ahmaud Arbery and with, George Floyd and the sister Brian Taylor. So all these protests and everything was happening, and Black Lives Matter blew up, right? And so a lot of these, white philanthropists say, "Oh, we need to do something about it." It's, because they were thinking like, "Oh, this is a revolution." Black people are teaming up with white folks, and everybody's getting out, and they're not having it. So what did they do? They said, "Okay, we're going to give, Black Lives Matter a whole lot of money. We're going to kind of like coil this. We're going to try to, we're going to give a whole lot of white guilt money. We're going to get in front of this."
But wait, I think that's not fair because Black Lives Matter they don't care about Black people. They care about
Well,
homosexuality and deneutralizing the nuclear family. So they weren't, it was on the surface, it looked like they were giving money because of white guilt. But in
that's what I'm saying.
reality, they were just promoting homosexuality and the breakup of the familial structure. So
Well, I mean,
under the cover of using Black Lives Matter.
well, I say Black Lives Matter because it was, the main emphasis that everybody, that was the hashtag, right? So everything was like, oh, we need to support Black Lives Matter or like any Black organization. So, like in this state, they had like, we're going to have, I forgot what it's called, some type of Black something, where they invested like 25 million in over 5 years to Black led, Black ran organizations that are for Black people, right? So all these things come out, and then people are like, oh, okay. So what it does, it takes some of the sting out of it. People become, you know, part of a part of a less revolutionary practice, right? They say, oh, well, we don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to, because now they're on our side. You know what I mean? And so this is, I mean, when you look at the history of welfare, the same thing happened. People are like, listen, we hungry and everything. We gonna take something from you if we don't get what we want, right? And what did the government say? Okay, we got to make sure we give them something to make sure that they don't, become revolutionary, right? How can we ease that pain? So that's the part of the power structure when we have, you know, hegemony. And the same thing still happens today. The people that are in power, they move the goalposts. They nuance it. They make it seem like what it is, and it really isn't. And we just go along and get along because we think that people are actually really, truly altruistic, that they really care for us, and they don't. They care about their bottom line, and they care about how they look, right? I mean, all these things have happened throughout history. Same thing with Brown versus education. Same thing with the Colin Kaepernick and Nike. People were like, "Oh, Nike, yes," and they bought all these
But
Nikes
then
and
even
everything.
Nike chose a mulatto though. So they weren't really about,
But
they
but
found a mulatto with an afro and they put him up there.
but
So
absolutely,
I
but
I think
black folks will ride with that sentiment though. Like they'll say, "Hey, we're riding with Colin Kaepernick and everything," and that goes into a whole nother portion of the conversation that which we really even which I haven't delved into much, but the colorism and the whole mulatto and how even of late, and I know you don't watch TV, and I keep telling you this, and probably some of the listeners, people in the chat can attest to this. But when you watch TV now, I would say almost I would say close over 90% of the couples you see black are either have a mixed couple and then you have mixed children. I mean, that's what's being promoted. It's very rare that you see a black, a sister and a brother and a black child. Nope, they're all mixed. And that's what's being propagated now. And so your point of, whiteness as right, that's what they're showing. Like, hey, if
yes,
you
this is
marry,
the new
you need to make sure
representation of
you
Black.
yes, you need to make sure you get with this person so your children can look like this. Or you need to make sure if you want to marry, I mean, Verizon had a new commercial like, oh, we're gonna have a baby. I was a brother. I'm like, you wouldn't see this years ago. Dark skinned brother with a blonde and everybody's all happy. I'm like, what in the HE double hockey sticks is going on here? But you see it, it's pervasive, right? And so this is part of like, oh, this is how we could temper this. We could say, hey, we're all it's all love, it's all kumbaya. Listen, we got blacks and whites getting along. Isn't what Dr. King wanted? So why are black folks mad?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, we convolute. Um, because for example, like if we find that, people who are top earners are all, lawyers, then people will seek to get into law because that gives them access. And we convolute people having overwhelming access to wealth and privilege with them being better, right? So then when we reach those echelons, we are reaching to attain themness. And that has breeded an environment, like I said, where from the clothes we wear to the way we wear our hair, to the way that we choose to speak or the ideologies that we take on, that we are in emulation mode. And that is why when Mr. says, because this is something he says all the time, Black people think white people's ice is cooler. But like we said at the beginning of live, it's because it is cooler. They can afford a better refrigerator, right? Their water's probably hotter too because they got the state of the line, the top of the line water heater. But it's not because white is better. It's because having power is better. And what is interesting is that the lower classes are in constant chase, and it's different for a white lower class and a Black lower class. For a white lower class, you see yourself reflected in your leaders as far as physicality. For Black people, we don't see ourselves reflected in the majority of the upper class. So what we are attaining and reaching for is their whiteness, which is why you get these twisted things like accessing whiteness, which I think is a disgusting thing to say. What you want to, because it reinforces this idea of essentially trying to assimilate into whiteness. The real thing, because words matter, that we should say is that we should access power. And then if our intention is to access power, then what we attempt to attain is the power and not the whiteness. Right? We have to separate power from whiteness. We have to separate this idea that those who are accomplished, who have power, who have resources, attaching that ideology to whiteness is a problem. What should be attained is not the whiteness. What we're trying to access is not the whiteness. What we need to attain and access is the power. And when we can separate those two things, we can stop constantly trying to morph ourselves into this white mold. That in and of itself is problematic. And so is white better? White is better. White is better in what they have is better. But we need to, as a people, learn to separate the man from what the man has. And I think we have a very hard time doing that, which is why Nick Cannon's retarded, but is on here talking about, the fact that having a white woman is a status symbol. He's retarded because he thinks it's a status symbol because he thinks that accessing certain white women is something you can only do once you access whiteness. Right. And so that twisted mindset that so many of our people have, or, we have women wearing, wigs down to their butts, the way that a white woman's hair grows out of her head. Why? Because we attach the whiteness, right, to the assets. And that detachment, I think, has to be made in our minds.
But yeah, we have a difficult time making that distinction. I mean, even within religiosity, right? That we attach, we have this picture even of a white savior, right? And even with the propaganda that's going on now, it's especially going to be hard to make that distinction, right? Because if you have it, again, I'm not, coming from my brother Nick, but even if you have that ideology, like, okay, I have the white woman and she's the prize, but now when they're promoting that all over these commercials and everything, and you're going to be like, hey, and again, a lot of these celebrities, especially athletes and everything, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, sometimes you could say these brothers sold out, or you could say they were sought out, because a lot of these, listen, the parents and everything, it's like a Get Out, but kind of flipped, right? So they invest in these brothers early on. They're like, oh yeah, he's gonna make it to the NBA. They stay, or NFL, or whatever the case may be. They ride with them, and that's not to say you don't have any sisters that don't ride with brothers either. I'm not saying that at all, because that is the case. But with some of our brothers who have that warped mindset, they're feeling like, okay, again, white ice is always cooler. Then they're gonna go with the white, with the white girl, right?
Whoa. Cassandra, I didn't say long hair equals whiteness because we know I just cut my hair from practically like past my waist, burgeoning on my hips. So no, that's not what I said. I said wearing a long, straight weave that came from hair, a person with hair like a white person. is equals whiteness. That's what I said. So I didn't say long hair, right? I said wearing hair that is clearly belongs on a white person's head down to your butt is white is equals emulating whiteness. And I stand by that, right? Again, not knocking people who wear weaves and wigs. I'm just saying we do have to have like honest conversations. And I know some people are saying, well, I don't think this way. Well, you may not think that way, and I may not think that way. But we do have to have conversations that reflect the whole of our population. And
But
when
sometimes
I
there's
can
forced aesthetics, right? And so, we've heard several times about sisters in particular who are wearing their hair naturally or short or what have you, and they're on the news and they get, ostracized or even get laid off for wearing their hair in a more
back,
organic, natural manner, right? And so sometimes we get pushed. Now, sometimes sisters resist, right? Say, no, I want to rock it the way I want to rock it, and that should be okay, right? Even brothers, right? Who are going to politics. I think Warnock is the first brother that I've ever seen that wasn't clean shaven. I mean, you have to kind of like assimilate into a certain type of look, right? You can't have a goatee or anything like that. A sister, you can't have like a first lady because she had like twisties or rock a short afro. You know what I mean? No, she
she
has
could
to have.
have, and maybe it would have been powerful had she had,
Yeah.
right?
Well, let's stay on that point. I don't know if you know this. So years ago, um,
Wait, but can I ask after that point, can you tell Sandra D why you don't like bonnets?
did I say
The
bonnet?
ladies remember that I told them once that I don't wear bonnets to bed because you're not fond of them, so I sleep on a silk pillow. And so Sandra wants to know why you don't like bonnets. So after you say what you have to say, address
Well,
that,
I
okay?
was
Because the
wondering
ladies
where
want to
you
know.
came from. Like, I don't like bonnets. I'm like, I don't. Oh, so really, Irene, you go put me on the spot.
Okay, you can. He pleads the fifth, y'all. He pleads the
Uh, wow.
fifth.
You really gonna? Yeah, I'm not gonna go there. Um,
I'm mad Sandra held on to that. She was like, I'm waiting for Mister to come back so I can ask about
she did go there. Wow, wow.
it.
Um, let's just say, yeah, I'm not even go there. I'm not even go there because I can't win. I can't win with that statement.
Okay, he Mr. pleads the fifth, y'all. He pleads.
I'm going to sound like I'm too elitist and I'm like one of those too good Negroes. But yeah, so well, I, I have been with some sisters who have wrapped their hair and everything, so it's not like it hasn't happened. It's just not, it's not my thing. I'll just leave it at that. But what I was going to say, so this I think he's deceased now. Don Imus, he had a radio show, the Don Imus radio show, and he insulted some sisters. I forget the basketball. Was it Rutgers? I forget the basketball team. Somebody in the chat may know the team, but he called them some nappy headed hoes. He said, "What a bunch of nappy headed hoes." He like, hey, the rappers say this. I was just using their term, and so you had the Reverend Al Sharpton. Everybody was coming for him, right? Everybody came for him, and so he had to give up some money and I think he lost his show for a little bit, but you know how white folks do. They always get their show back. Um, but what happened was, I thought it was interesting to your point that you just alluded to, Irene, regarding the first lady. We're talking about Michelle Obama. Um, when they went to his show, they all had their hair laid to the side, fried, dyed, and laid to the side. They had their perms. I mean, it was just like they shaking. I was just like, wow. It really would have been a more powerful statement had they gone with their natural hair, you know, looking like Lady of Rage, rough and stuff with the Afro puffs, or something with a more ethnic hair do. But no, all of them really acquiesced to what he said. So when he called them nappy headed hoes, they're like, oh, well, shoot, I'm going to come on the show and show you I ain't no nappy headed hoe. And, they even did the same thing with the sister who's the gymnast who's off the chart. Now they're talking about her hair. Look, her hair is this, but I think it was us coming for her, right? I think it was black folks coming for her. Look, they can't even do her hair and this and that. And I'm like, really? And that leads me to
But
Pam.
doesn't she? Didn't she have her hair? Like, am I going crazy? Doesn't she have a relaxer, ladies? I feel like, and I have not come for Candace Owens, but I'm gonna lightweight come for her tonight. When I look at women like Candace Owens who are beautiful but have no hair because they fry it so much trying to keep it that straight, that is problematic to me. It's like her hair should be have grown by now, but it cannot grow because I think she simply cannot, you know, maybe with pregnancy it'll get longer, but I think she just fries it to death. And I feel like I don't know if Gabby, that's her name, right? The
Yeah,
Olympus
Gabby. Yeah.
Olympian.
Hmm.
I don't know if that was, the same like vibe with her if her hair was natural. Was it natural or was it like relaxed?
I, I don't know. I think she had it like in a braids or some type of bun and and
But
I don't
she's
know if she
also a baby too. How is she, like 20 something?
yeah, and I think she was like being their care provider were some white folks I think during the Olympics, and people were just coming for her, and I'm just like and see that's the thing I don't really like this when people come for our sisters, and I'm not perfect, right? But this weekend people were talking about Pam Oliver, who used to be part of the number one team on CBS, and she was demoted, and nothing was mentioned about that. Pam Oliver, sometimes she has some interesting, hairdos, different wigs and weaves and everything. That's her. She can do what she wants. People come for her and talk about it. She's got a big head and everything. But I think Pam Oliver is one of the more most professional sisters in sports. She's been doing this for a while, and people were coming for her this weekend, talking about like she was slurring, was she sick, was she this, was she that, and but I think it leads to this, right? What we're talking about, because if Pam Oliver was light skinned or she was mulatto or something
Oh
like
my gosh, wait, I'm so sorry. Let me address something in the chat. I don't care who anybody dates. So if you're going to be in your feelings about who anybody dates, you probably want to leave my channel because it doesn't matter over here. Nobody cares. Okay. So take that to one of those retrograde channels where you guys are speaking about retarded things and base level things, and don't bring that here. So you can stay in my chat, but if you start acting dumb and trying to be disruptive, I'm going to put you out my chat because this is not the place for your retrograde conversations. I'm sorry.
no. I mean, this is your channel. You need to regulate, but yeah, yeah, I think some people were commenting on Pam Oliver, like she may have been cold or anything, but I just saw numerous like stories and people were just coming for her, and I'm just like, I don't like that when people are coming for our sister. But I think it would have been a little different had she been like, you know, somebody like I forget her name. Her name is Taylor, and she's on um, the Cowherd show, and she looks like she's white, right? Well, I mean, she could pass. I think she's mixed, right? But no one would ever say anything about her. I think her name is Joy Taylor. So no one would ever say anything like about her because she could pass for almost white, right? And so the colorism is a big deal, right? And it does allow you a lot of privileges. I mean, those of you who are familiar with the old movie Imitation of Life, where you know
I don't know who Pam Oliver is.
So Pam Oliver she's a sports sideline reporter from CBS, and I guess during the football game this weekend, people were trying to make it seem as though she like slurred her words, like she was sick or she was drunk, but it was like cold. They were in Green Bay, and it was like freezing. So I don't know. When I heard it, I'm like, okay, what's the big deal? You know, I mean, they literally have folks on the air that are drunk and everything, high, all kind of stuff, and I'm like, but this is not the first time that people have attacked this sister. You know what I mean? And not just her, but like I said in other examples, like sisters who have their natural hair, or they stand unapologetically. They come for them. They come. listen, the president came for several sisters throughout his, his 4 years. You know what I mean? But he came for them, but the president was he was just a jerk. He came for everybody. So, that doesn't excuse it, but you still shouldn't come for people like that. But I don't see what that brother just put on there. Somebody had a bald head or something.
Oh, he just said that he has seen black women with shaved heads, no hair, and that they're beautiful. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, sisters can have, short hair. I mean,
he's saying that's true, but I promise you, after I cut my hair, every time he even thinks that my hair is remotely shorter, he's like, "You didn't cut your hair again, did you?" So he was not feeling that. But I do believe Mister when he says that women can be beautiful with short hair.
no,
But I also believe that's not his preference.
I've seen several women with short hair and they're gorgeous. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, right? It doesn't. But I've seen some sisters and everything. They can, it looks good on them, but it doesn't look good on everybody. Just like some sisters shouldn't be, rocking the unbelievable because it just doesn't look good on them. You know what I mean? And I know people, rock weaves for different things to protect their hair and all this. And again, that's not my position or place to, to judge them. But I mean,
Oh,
I could
ladies,
say,
you have to touch down, mister, because that's what the ladies are always saying. Like, it is not a man's position to be worried about it. And see, you heard mister say it. See, I did not tell him to say that. He just said that, ladies.
no, I mean, I could see things. I'm like, okay, but that's not my place to go in. Like, I can have my preference, but I can't say, oh, I can look at some like, okay, that might not look the best. And since y'all know when something looks just like unbelievable, it's just a hot mess. Y'all know what it is. And y'all know what it is when it looks cool and everything, or when somebody's rocking that natural hair and it looks a mess. So it's just not, you know, just a weed thing. It could be just a mess regardless of what it is. So let's not get into that. But let's still topic. Um, Whiteness is better. I would implore y'all to read Cheryl Harris' Whiteness is Property because it gets into the legalities of how that works.
Can you repeat the name for those people who really will read it?
Yeah, so Cheryl Harris, Whiteness is Property. And I think it's in the Harvard um, Law Review. And or if you get the Critical Race Theory book, the red book, it's in there as well. But definitely that would be a good thing to read. Go ahead and find the song on YouTube by what's his name, Big Billy Bronzy. I think the song is hilarious, but I think it has some truth to it. Even still today, I think even for black folks, we don't like to be around other black folks sometimes. Um, Excuse me, especially in the state where I am currently. I think sometimes you know people would rather just associate with other white folks than associate with black folks, and that's people's. They can do what they want to do, but it's not a good feeling to get shunned by your own people. But when they're trying to as Derek Bell says, serve two masters. That's what you get.
Or just serve one master, right? Like they've picked a master and
Yeah,
they're all up under that.
yeah,
So, yeah, what should be our closing remarks? Because Mr. Strictly said we had to keep this at an hour and no longer. So, what do you think we should say in closing, Mister?
yeah. So I'll share this. I don't know if this would be a great closing, because Irene doesn't watch television. I do, and I was watching what is it, Law and Order S, Special Unit Victim, and there was this one um, show, because my research looks at black males. So anything where a black male is in there at the focus, I'm all in. And so I kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened. So these young males, like 14, 15, they were teasing a trans girl, right? and they were like,
Wait,
"Oh, look,
wait. So it was you mean a boy? A, a boy dressed as a girl?
that's what
Or a girl
that's
dressed as a boy?
a trans girl."
So I'm asking you,
Yes,
so was it a female who was
no,
dressed as
it was
a boy?
a
So
male.
a boy. Okay.
Yeah.
So they were choosing, he's not a girl. So a boy. Okay.
Oh, Irene
Like
is
I just
killing
looking
it.
for clarity.
Okay,
A man dressed as a woman. Okay. So they were
so and
teasing
he
a
was young too.
trans man.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So and they were kind of harassing them and everything. And so what happened was he took his camera and everything, and you know it was three of them, and one um kind of kind of pushed him onto another boy. Another boy kind of reacted and pushed him kind of like off the bridge, and he fell, or she, politically correct term, although Irene's going to say he, fell.
No, well, I say because it's factual. I just want to throw that out there. I have to speak facts, right? When you
Okay,
have a penis, that's a boy. So,
listen, I'm not trying to look under the skirt or none of that stuff. I'm trying to get to the point.
well, if the word trans is in front of it, the word trans says that I have a penis, so I'm a boy.
Well,
So
I
he
don't.
fell off a bridge. Is that what you're saying?
So yeah, he fell off. He didn't die, or he. So they didn't
So
die.
what they were attacking him?
So it was a reaction. So they were, I would say they were like razzing him, right? So I don't think it was to the level of hate crime. I think it was just like, you know, just,
Were they harassing him because he was a boy in a dress?
yeah, they're like, what's under the
Yeah,
button?
that's not right. You can't, we should not, I just PSA, do not harass mentally ill people. That is
So,
not how we should deal with people who have mental illnesses. There are other ways that we need to deal with them. Don't be pushing them and harassing these mentally ill people. They got enough problems without you picking on them.
so what happened was, like I said, he got pushed on him, right? And he didn't really, he kind of like reacted, kind of like, like get off me. It wasn't like a deliberate shove, like, it with malice, but he fell nonetheless. He didn't, the person didn't die, right? They were in the hospital and everything, and they ended up finding the young man, and dot, and he was gonna go to juvenile hall or whatever it is, and he was remorseful for the event. He drew a picture of it, and saying how sorry he was, and this and that, and everything, and so unfortunately, the person died because their leg, something happened that their broken femur caused him to die. Um, I really am, Sandra, because I really be on my helmet about
Sandra
this.
is so messy. You
Man,
got all the mess tonight, don't you?
man, Sandra's on my helmet. I'm trying to keep it a buck, but I really be like, nope, 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 no, that's a boy. But anyway, so the person died, and then of course, you know what happens. They elevated, to a hate crime, and now he's up for murder and this and that. Well, he had a good lawyer, which is remarkable for a young black male to have a good lawyer, right? Um, and the case was tried, and of course, the white parents, they were paternalistic, right? They're like, you know, our daughter would want for him to go to prison for, as an adult and this and that. And, the dad showed the letter of, you know, the drawing of him being apologetic and everything. And it struck a chord, and everybody was all sad. And his teacher at the school was saying how, of a good kid he was and how he made a mistake and everything. And even though all that was said, he still got them 7 years, and then he still got tried as an adult. Well, why I say that long drawn out, um, you know, um, Law and Order SVU, show, because we know what
Oh
happened.
my gosh, this wasn't even real. I'm hella mad.
No, no, but see what happened. But no, hold up. No, but hold up.
No,
I really
you did start off talking. You did say it in the beginning, but I guess I got caught up in the
no,
story and the pronouns that I forgot.
but but what you need to know, Irene, is oftentimes they base those off of real life events. So what they do is they take those from things that actually happen, like in the headlines that happen. So even though, of course, it was Hollywood dramatized and everything, but these are often from mainly all of them are from real life events.
Dude, I was over here feeling seriously like I was really giving a PSA
Yeah.
for
So
real, for real
of course,
about like real people. I forgot that you were saying you were just recanting what happened on
yeah,
a show.
but again, but again, like I said, they base it off real life events. So that we know that actually happened, and we know it actually happened to a black male. But I'm saying we know when those situations happen where white males are in that situation, and especially 9 times out of 10, the the judge is going to be white. Then of course they're going to look at them and say, "Oh, that could be my child." There's going to be more sympathy. And again,
Well, I also
here's
think
the
that
flip
they
side.
don't.
Hold on. Here's the flip side.
Okay.
But even when we have a white, I mean, when we have a black judge, right? Like we saw in that Dallas, I mean, that Houston, whatever that Texas, whatever city they were, when that white lady shot that brother and everything, you saw that black judge go down there reading Bible scriptures, and the brother act like he wanted to, feel homegirl up and everything, and the parent was just all forgiving and everything. And I know we're supposed to forgive and everything, but gee whiz, I mean, the
Yeah, I
judge.
think they were doing too much publicly. Like I could have gave them a Bible too, but doing you guys know how I felt about that. I did a video on it. I think, and I'm Christian.
Yeah,
I just felt like
but I'm
it went too
saying,
far.
this that's the juxtaposition, right? So white judges, they will definitely be more forgiving for white people. They'll grant them mercy, and even black folks will grant white folks mercy, and they might grant us mercy. But again, this still is that mimesis. They're still mimicking white folks. So I
Yeah,
just,
I just wanted to say on that, even though I guess this is on topic, but um, I think that's also because Black girls and boys, but specifically when we're talking about the court system, which engages Black males more, Black boys are not considered children. I remember a bunch of children, Black children,
you want me to
had
go
gotten
into that?
together.
Um,
Yeah, but after I say this, I do. So I remember a bunch of Black children had gotten together after school. They were kind of gathered, in a group, and some police had come over. I don't know if some of the children, they were arguing. It was nothing serious going on, but one of the police officers took one of the boys, and our boys do right around 13, 14. Some of them are very large, right? And he took the boy and he slammed his face into the pavement, and his face was covered in blood. And this is a child. This is a child. This is like a 14, 15-year-old child. And somebody literally had the nerve to say, well, that's a big kid. So, like, that makes it okay. And it's like, no, that's a child. And any parent knows 14, 15, that's a whole child, right? So, that's not appropriate. So, definitely, our children, and then to speak on the woman's side of it, on the female side of it, when you have a young girl, you literally have people acting as if a 14 or 15-year-old, or even sometimes younger, because our girls tend to develop a little bit earlier, and people sexualizing them or saying that they can pursue sexuality in the way that an adult woman could, versus looking at the fact that that's a child. So our children are not allowed to be perceived as children. We know that there was a slave practice of locking Black children into barns to hope that they would mate with each other. So this pathology, this pathologizing of our children and not allowing them to be viewed as children, where take a little white 14-year-old boy's face and bash his face into the ground and see how many people think it's okay because that child's not really a child, right? Um, say that a little white girl was, capable of pursuing sex with an adult, and see how, if she's called fast, or if she is held accountable as if she's capable of making those decisions like a grown woman. That is just not grace that our children are given. And this, I even point the finger at the Black community too. We do this to our own children. We do not allow our children to be babies. We treat them like they are adults, and it is disgusting. So it's from without and within. They treat our kids like adults, and then we come for our kids like they're adults too. Sorry,
No,
mister.
no, absolutely. I said we were going to be on here long, but yeah. So Philip A. Goff, Goff. Look at his work on implicit bias, especially on black males. He has one called "Not Yet Human," and that's when they're really talking about how they look at the black males um, as like apes. But he has another one where he looks at the the age of black males and how, like you were just articulating, Irene, how they're often viewed as much older than they are. And then there's the research on the preschool boys, right? And how they get tracked by the teacher's eyes and how they're pathologized at an early age, right? How they're
Can you
tracked.
repeat the reading material after you finish your explanation for those who will really read it?
Yeah, so Philip, I think it's Atiba Golf, it's Goff. So the one, and he has several on implicit bias. I can't think of the article, the one where he talks about the underage black males looking older. That I can't remember the title of that particular piece, but he has another one called "Not Yet Human," um, and this is by Philip. And his last name is Goff, Goff, and I forget I think that's a Harvard study. The one, and I forget the white guy's name who did that article on that. But you look at black males, black boys in preschool, and how they were tracked. So you look at the implicit bias of black males, even in preschool, how they're deemed and pathologized just for being the three B's: big, black, and a boy. Those three reasons, and they begin to be pathologized. So these type of things happen early on. And so when we look at, and of course, whiteness is viewed as being pure, right? Um, I think Irene, last time we talked, you were talking about um, Dr. King's work, not Martin Luther King, but Dr. Joyce King, and she was looking at critical literacy, and she had this example from Robert, I forget his name, but they were looking at the language and how they were using black, you know, and it was always used negatively, and so a reason why I say that is because the language we use matter, right? And so when we start, using these terms pathologically towards, black males and black females, and it's in our literature, it's what we're reading to them, this is the curriculum that we're using, right? And it's just, we just put them in a position. But everything that's white, like you said in that example, is pure, right? Just like we look at, devil's food, and we know this angel cake. I mean, those are easy examples. Malcolm told us about those, a long time ago. But even when we start seeing the images, of black and white people, she had, the lady was dirty, and then she came out to be white and she was clean. I mean, all these different things. I mean, there's a picture, I think it's from Benetton, where you have, I think it's a black little girl. I mean, I think it's a white little girl and it's a black little boy, but his hairstyle looks like his horns. So he looks like a devil, and the little white girl looks like a little pure angel. I mean, so all these images are being propagated early on, and they keep getting reified, not only in the media, but even within our schools, right? And so society just reifies these
But can
images.
we take it I just want to take it one step further while you're talking about like the little white girl being the angel. This is something that was exhibited in Uncle Tom's Cabin too, where the good Negro, Uncle Tom in that book, idolized the little blonde-haired white girl who was basically in his eyes like an angel. So even the good Negro recognizes that the little blonde-haired white child is an angel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this goes back to your initial, like opening, talking about that text. You know, I think if there's some, critical literacy, so some critical literature analysis, then I think that could be read. You know what I mean? But I think you have to juxtapose it with something else and show like, hey, this is what's going on here. You know what I mean? Or say, okay, just open it up to students and say, hey, well, what do you think's going on here? I see this here. They're really glorifying and, really pushing a particular aesthetics, right? Like it's over something else. But I see right here that this is just as beautiful. So what's going on here? And then you show some contemporary, like I alluded to earlier, you show some of these commercials now and say, okay, what is going, why is it not, somebody who's, blue, black, blurple on these commercials with somebody else who's blue, black, blurple, you know, brother, sister on there, and they blue, black, blurple child. Why don't we see any of that? So we damn sure see white males and white females and white children. We see
Because
that.
nobody wants to see a blue, black, purple somebody unless it's the random African model that's half naked, or as Naomi Campbell did, pouring milk over her naked body. So that's the only time that they want to see that imagery. But I also want to say, Sandra said pure vanilla is a dark color, so pure can be used to describe black. I think to take what you're saying a step further, Sandra, is that vanilla is black, right?
It really
Even if you get
is.
it, but then everything that you see vanilla in society is portrayed as white. Isn't that interesting?
Well, they always, they always change it. They always juxtapose it to being something that it's not. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that because there's a whole lot I get into regarding that, but that'll be too long and historical. And I think we well over our 45 minutes to an hour. But I think this has been good. Hopefully, people in chat enjoyed it. But because what's her name, Sandra? She was coming from my helmet all night. Sister, give me a break.
Oh, I know. She was doing the most. You're so bad, Sandra. But yeah, well, I thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. We probably could have really dug into this more, but Mr. has us on a time schedule, so we're not going to do that. But maybe we can revisit it. And I think revisiting the language, I would love to do that with you, because I think part of us reprogramming our mindsets is understanding the level of conditioning and rethinking a lot of these things. Because when we think about it, we know these things, but we have to be actively kind of
You sounded kind of
reprogramming how
robotic.
we think.
You sounded kind of robotic.
Oh, do I? Okay, we should probably just go then.
No, no, but I have a question for you because you mentioned earlier about
Okay, wait a second. If I sound robotic, 1 second. I'm going to do something.
okay, because yeah, I had a question about something you alluded to earlier about you said the sister said we need to borrow their privilege.
Do I still
Um,
sound robotic?
we said we need to borrow their privilege. Who said that?
Who said that?
You said somebody said we need to borrow white folks' privilege, or you said
Oh,
something.
Yvette Carnell.
Yeah.
She's
So
a
Sister Cardinal said
lesbian.
we need
She's
to.
like a lesbian activist, and she said that we need to access whiteness.
So what? Do you elaborate? Because I don't know what she means by that.
What she means is that um, we need to access white people's positioning in society. She says that and I did a video on this, you guys, kind of breaking down why we're not going to be accessing whiteness, but she used the Italians as an example, how they weren't always considered white, but now they are, like they accessed whiteness. But Italians are like literally white. So I think that's a poor example. Like all the examples she used were white people who accessed higher levels of whiteness. But that's what she means. Like, getting access into those echelons of society.
Yeah, that can't happen for melanated folks. I don't see how
I
that happens.
know.
I mean,
That's what I said in my video. I was like, all the examples she used, notice that these are white-skinned people, right? So this is not going to be work the same for
yeah,
us.
I mean, so you can make the argument. There, of course, there's the argument in academia that so the model minority are the Asians, right? And then there's a study by John Agbu who talks about the involuntary and the involuntary and a voluntary immigrant. So he's talking about, you know, you know, the brothers that and sisters that come over here from Africa, and those of us who were here, um, before we were involuntary, right? Because we were brought over here, and how there's this distinction in the way in which we go about education, right? So those of us who are here, we kind of resist, you know, trying to mimic, white folks and whiteness and everything. We try to, resist that. And those who come over, assimilate more and they see it as a better opportunity. But even in that example right there, right? Those are still Africans that are black. You know what I mean? So they're not going to be able to access whiteness. So I don't really know what she means by that, other than the people that are already white that are going to, come into the fold because they can assimilate because of their whiteness. Not
Oh, oh my gosh, that was my whole point. I agree. We
yeah,
could
I
have a
don't.
whole conversation on the accessing. I don't even like the terminology, but I just don't even like selling that pipe dream to our people because this is not how it works. And
Okay,
she was like,
yeah, yeah. I just when you said that, I'm like, what? How the hell does that happen? But now that I'm like, yeah, yeah. I don't have, I'm not coming for the sister or anything like that. But I'm like, I don't.
no,
That don't
she is
work.
the one, ADOS, her and Tone Talks are the people that came up with that. Well, they didn't come up with it. The brother did it before them, but they popularized it.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's who Yvette is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Yvette. I know her, but I didn't. I was trying to make sense of that phrasing, that statement, because I'm like, how do you? I mean, you literally have to, And again, I'm not trying to diss Michael Jackson, but you kind of have to do some Michael Jackson, Sammy Sosa stuff. You know what I mean? You have to literally,
Like literally access whiteness.
yes. I mean,
Like
that's.
access it for real, for real.
I mean, you know. I mean,
We
I
need
mean,
to go to bed.
I mean, even listen, even the most cooniest coon, they can act everything, and yeah, they might, but they still are melanated. They're not going to be able to
They'll
access
access
it.
petness. You'll access being some white person's pet. That's what
Yeah,
you're gonna.
that's it. I mean, that's going to be listen. There's levels to this, man.
Bob, let's invite that nigger to the party. He's entertaining. That's what you're gonna access. One nigger at the party for everybody. Like that's
uh,
what's gonna happen.
okay, we well over now because now it's getting to a point where they're like, these Negroes crazy. They're over here clowning. Um, man.
They like get out where it's like, why are these two Negro men wandering around the party? I have a white soul and a black body.
oh, so Zaza X has still become a self fulfilling prophecy. Mm, that's interesting. Yeah.
What? What did you say?
She said, awesome live. I still think it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy, though. Well,
What? What becomes a
I
self-fulfilling
think she's
prophecy?
talking about like wanting to become white. I can't speak for her, but that's what.
Zaza, what do you mean when you say something becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy? Can you answer that? What do you mean, Zaza? They hear us delayed and we see their chats delayed by a few seconds.
Oh, okay.
We'll try it. We'll give it 2 minutes, Zaza. Answer the question. The clock is ticking. Okay.
She said this life. She said this chat became a self
Oh,
fulfilling.
oh.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
We're leaving. We're not talking to y'all anymore.
they going in. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Y'all need to sleep. We all need to go to bed. That's all that this has proven is we're all tired. We all
Man.
need to go to bed. We are all suffering from sleep deprivation.
Well, y'all take tomorrow off. Y'all can have it off.
Oh, Zaza said there were two white guys in the chat and everyone solely focused on. Oh, you mean like the chat with it? Ooh, Zaza got deep. It's called White is Better. And then there were two white people present here tonight. And she was saying everybody was focused on those two white men that were in the chat. And a lot of people were heavily focused on that. That's true. That is true, Zaza. And that is pretty, that's pretty profound. I noticed it, but you articulated it, and that was pretty crazy. I did notice that as well. Um, and I think part of that could have been self-fulfilling, but I also think part of it is that they were in the space providing a different narrative. Um, and so how many times do we get to have I mean, in the 70s, we did it all the time, got with white people and just blatantly said what was on our mind. But that's less common now because everybody has to be politically correct. But you're right, Zaza. Everybody was hyper focused on them. I agree.
Well, I hope they weren't being sycophantical towards them. I hope that was the case.
Wow.
um, you know, but somebody said the white guys were trolling. I don't
I
know.
think they were serious. I don't think they were trolling. I think they were being serious. Um, yeah, I think they were being serious. I don't think they were trolling.
I don't know. See, Irene has a soft spot for them, but she be on trans helmet. See, I don't think they were trolling.
I'm not on trans
Dude.
people's helmets. I'm not on trans people's helmets, but I will discriminate against a black trans person equally as a white one. All trans people are equal in the eyes of Irene. I feel the same about them all. So so but do not harass the trans, do not harass mentally ill people. Like, I'm not even being funny. That is not cool. Like, you have to we need to start dealing with them as mentally ill people. We take them too seriously and we do too much of
Yeah,
the
Josh
wrong.
said he wasn't a troll. So listen, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think you were. I
just
don't think you
saw the
were a
comments and everything.
Josh.
I don't know if you, I don't know if he
And
was or wasn't.
I know for a fact that that Hamster was not a troll. So I don't think
Well,
either of them were trolls.
listen, I don't know if they were or weren't. It was a good conversation. So hopefully some got out. Hopefully we got some out of it. Cassandra got on my helmet, so I'm just gonna end it and
Good night.
good
We
night.
out. That was my throw at slang right there. You guys like that? You like that? We out.
Horrible, horrible.
Peace to the
All right,
peeps.
y'all. All right, y'all.